What a defensive performance by the Kraken. Certainly one of, if not their best performance so far this season in their own end of the ice. It just would have been nice if they could have spent a little bit less time in their own end of the ice. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken come back from a very successful road trip on the East Coast and continue to play well against a very good Florida Panthers team who is obviously coming off a Stanley Cup victory and playing well at the moment, coming into Seattle on a 6-game point streak and, well, continued to play well here. The Kraken gave them everything that they could handle, though, at least defensively anyway. Still end up falling in this one 2-1 in the shootout. So the Kraken at least get a point out of it, which against a team this good playing as well as they are right now it's not bad. First off, though, it is nice to be home back in the normal setup, have a little bit more control over the whole editing and production part of these videos. It doesn't mean things get a little bit later, obviously, with the home game and then overtime and a shootout on top of it. Still, the road trip was a lot of fun, going to see the 3 games in New York, seeing all 3 of those arenas for the first time. Madison Square Garden, I'd never been to anything there before, so it was great to see that historic arena. And, well, I appreciate you guys sticking with me with those R&Rs. I know audio quality wasn't necessarily where it usually is, and yeah, certainly some of it wasn't as polished as things normally are when I have a little bit more control as I do home. And now that we're back, we'll be this way for, I think, pretty much the rest of the season. There might be one more road game that I do later on this year, but we'll see how things pan out. And as far as the Kraken are concerned, it was good to see that they came back home, still playing as well as they did out on the road. Certainly, again, against a very good Panthers team playing well at the moment. Yeah, it wasn't as high scoring. It could have been a better offensive performance. I mean, they came off of 7 goals against the Rangers, so it was hard to expect that against the Panthers playing the way they are right now that something like that was going to happen. But yeah, maybe a little bit more offense than the 1 goal the Kraken muster. They still do, I think, produce a lot more danger than what the shot total might suggest. A lot of the Kraken chances, although they were fewer and farther between in this game, were pretty high danger chances off of rushes, a couple breakaways, some 2-on-1s. The Kraken were getting close to the net and firing off some open shots. Just Bobrovsky was great in net for the Panthers. Either way, again, coming out with at least 1 point against this Panthers team. I mean, let's put it this way. If you told any Kraken fan that coming out of that game against the Ducks and the 2 games against the Sharks, and looking at the schedule ahead for that road trip and then coming back to face the Panthers, that after the game against the Panthers, the Kraken would be back at NHL 500, I think just about any Kraken fan would have happily taken that. They might not have believed you that it was going to happen, but would have happily taken it. And with this game against the Panthers, while it would have been nice to see a little bit more consistent offense and certainly a little bit more of some chances where the Kraken are actually set up in the offensive end and not just relying on those rush chances down the ice the other way, it is almost kind of nice to see that they are able to play these different style of games, even right back to back, one after the other, and find ways to come away from games with points in the standings through those different types of games, whether it's lots of offense like they had against the Rangers, or if it's just playing very solid in their end of the ice like they had to tonight against the Panthers. And as we get into the game itself, with only difference lineup-wise for the Kraken being Decord back in net, it seemed early on like this might be the direction this game was headed in. Of course, we thought the same thing after the first period against the Rangers, where it was 1-0, and the second and third told a very different story in that game. But early on, 5 minutes into this game, the shots are 2-on-1, I'm pretty sure, in favor of the Kraken, though that would end up flipping on its head as the game went along. Still, it was not a particularly, well, certainly not a high danger, but just not a high chance first 10 minutes of the game. 10 minutes in, it's 5-3 shots on goal, so starting to get a few more shots here and there, and at this point it had already flipped to the Panthers having more of the chances, but nothing high danger really at either end of the ice. The Kraken might have had one decent look there, and it wasn't on their power play, which came just before the halfway point of the period. A power play that never really got going. They do get 1 shot on goal, I think, on it, but it's not a dangerous one. So an easy save for Bobrovsky, especially with the way he was playing in net for the Panthers in this game. Both goaltenders having fantastic nights. Just Decord's stats look a whole lot better because he faced a lot more shots. As we get into the back half of the first, though, the Panthers get their first power play of the game, and If you were looking for high-powered offense, or really just any kind of consistent offensive pressure from either team regardless of what the situation is, well, the 2 minutes of this Panthers power play were pretty much the game for you, as this is the most consistent offensive pressure that either team gets for any kind of extended period of time throughout the entire game. The Panthers spend almost the entire power play in the Kraken end of the ice, and anytime they aren't in it, they are getting quickly back into the offensive end. Even still, though, thankfully for the Kraken, with a lot of help and hard work from Decord on this penalty kill especially, but also some timely blocks and cleared pucks away from Decord if he didn't just freeze it on the save, the Kraken are able to successfully kill off this Florida power play, and then not long after they do so, they get one of those rush chances to find the back of the net, as it's actually Decord who starts the rush chance. He gets it to Larson. Larson gets it quickly up to McCann. McCann, coming through the neutral zone, gets it to Gord on the far side, and then Gord from along the boards, just past center ice, right in front of Florida's penalty box, finds a wide open Chandler Stevenson as he's streaking down the middle of the ice into the offensive end. He gets the pass cleanly from Gord, well placed to catch him in stride. He's loose on that breakaway, gets right up in front of Bobrovsky, fires off the shot, and puts it just off his glove into the net to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead. For Stevenson, it's just his third of the season, but it comes at a great time for the Kraken in a game that was pretty low event at either end of the ice, and as it turns out would stay that way. This goal, well, ends up being worth a point in the standings for the Kraken. It gets them on the board first in a low-scoring game with both goaltenders playing well, and it's a 1-0 lead that the Kraken would hold on to for a little bit over a period's worth of time. As the second period, which the Kraken get to holding on to that lead, not much happens in the last couple minutes of the first. The second period is not terribly eventful. Well, maybe a little bit more eventful than the shot totals or scoreboard or even the expected goals might show. I mean, spoiler alert, but nobody ends up scoring for the first 18, almost 19 minutes of the period. The Panthers are certainly getting a lot more of the offensive zone time by this point in the game. If anybody has control of the puck, it's most likely the Panthers. Meanwhile, the Kraken are definitely getting their chances and pretty much evening things up as far as the expected goals are concerned. They're just doing it more one chance at a time with rush chances the other way. A couple odd man rushes, some that don't even end up on a shot on goals. The Kraken try to force passes across. A couple that do. Burakovsky gets one on net that almost sneaks through the 5-hole of Bobrovsky, and he did have McCann on the other side, but you like to see him take that shot, especially after a couple odd man rushes had already not led to even a shot on goal. Anyway, we kind of go back and forth like that for the vast majority of the second period. The Panthers getting set up in the offensive end, creating chances, but they're all from the outside. Eventually, the Kraken get a rush chance the other way. Bobrovsky makes a save, and you rinse and repeat that whole thing over and over again until eventually the Kraken get their second power play of the game, where there is another rush chance, but it's a shorthanded one. Decord makes that save. Though, real quick, just to be clear, this was no ordinary run-of-the-mill shorthanded save where it's just kind of flung at the net with some challenge. This was a very nice save from Decord. Maybe his best of the game, certainly one of his best of the game to prevent the shorthanded goal. And then almost right back the other way as the Kraken power play comes to an end unsuccessfully. These first two power plays for the Kraken in this game looking a lot more like the power play we saw in the later part, or really just the majority of November. Not the one that we've seen here more recently. But again, almost immediately right back the other way, the Kraken are going to get another one of these rush chances. This time it's Yanni Gord in almost all alone on a partial break. And then right as he's about to fire off the shot, getting in close on Bobrovsky, he gets blatantly slashed across the hands. So obviously everybody in the arena saw it except for the Panthers fans that were covering their eyes pretending like they didn't. And apparently the official who should have been calling a penalty, he doesn't, so Gord is shaking his hands, trying to recover as he kind of slides into the boards down in the corner. The Panthers take the puck back the other way, and while everything that follows should never have happened because Gord should have, well, either it should have been blown dead and the Kraken getting a power play, or Gord could have gotten a penalty shot here, honestly. But again, neither of those correct potential options end up being taken by the officiating crew, so play continues, and right back the other way, the Panthers take the puck down the ice, and for the one time all game, the Kraken completely forget how to play defense. Maybe still flummoxed at how they're not on the power play, and how play is still happening in the first place. Either way, all 3 or 4 Kraken defenders that get back on this play just kind of clump up right down the middle of the slot, which serves two bad purposes. One, none of them are really covering anybody on the Panthers. Two of them have gotten past everybody, and the other one is at the top of this with the puck. And it serves the other purpose of creating a nice wall screen so Decor doesn't see the pass get off out to the far side, where Barkov is. He takes off the shot, and even if Decord had seen the pass happen when it did, he still might not have been able to make this save. He almost gets back to make it, but it still finds the back of the Kraken net to tie things at 1. Now, real quick, just to be perfectly honest and tidy this up, I guess, a little bit more, I would be a lot more upset and go off on how this one horrible call decides the game, or at the very least, is what allows the Panthers to get it to overtime, where they then end up winning it in the shootout. If it wasn't for, well, one, the fact that the Kraken still play terrible defense to allow the goal to happen, the officials just played their role in allowing play to continue after what should have been a penalty against the Panthers. And also, if it wasn't for the fact that the third period, yeah, this just turned out to be the start of what was not a very well officiated last 25 minutes, or I guess 22 minutes of hockey. The Kraken get away with a couple of different missed calls in the third period. Dunn got away with a high stick late in the game that at that point it's tied in a power play for the Panthers, especially after what we saw that first power play do, could end up deciding the game there. There was also a missed slashing call that could have gone against the Kraken, a missed trip that Alexiak should have drawn, again late in the third. It was just a very sloppy and inconsistently officiated, especially third period. Unfortunately, it starts here at the end of the second, and ends up helping cost the Kraken the lead. And as we do get into the third with the score still tied at 1, before the officials just threw their whistles over the board and said, go at it, do whatever the heck you want, the two teams do trade power plays early on in the period. Panthers get a power play that the Kraken kill off very well, and then the Kraken get their third power play of the game, which does go better, I guess, than the other two. It looks a lot more like the Kraken power play that we've seen recently. They get set up in the offensive end. They get a couple of opportunities for good chances. Unfortunately, by the time they actually get a shot off on net, Dunn fires it wide looking for a redirect to the side of the net, which Stevenson isn't able to provide. It's one of those where, especially with the amount of good passing, quick movement that the Kraken had on this power play to get a couple good looks, it would have been, I mean, honestly, it's just kind of, they need to put something on net there and not wide of the net. They need to at least force Bobrovsky to make a save. And I understand what Dunn's looking for here. At this point in the game, you know Bobrovsky is on his game, playing well, and it's going to take something like a net side redirect or some sort of screen or something like that to beat him. It's not going to be a shot from way up by the blue line that beats him. But you're passing the puck around so well. The power play hasn't been going amazing in the first two attempts. You got to get something at least on net or find a stick to put it off of that's a little bit higher chance of succeeding than a puck flying through the air that Stevenson has to try to snipe out of it with his stick, which doesn't happen. So that power play is killed off, and the rest of the third period is kind of more the same as the second, just worse officiating. And so eventually, after a late push by the Panthers to try to win it in regulation, as the Kraken kind of seemed over the last couple minutes to just accept that their best chance was to get this game to overtime, they're able to do that. We get to that overtime, and although the Panthers spend the majority of overtime once again with the puck, it's the Kraken who get the better chances to score, and they pretty much all come in the last minute of the overtime period. There's a good chance for McCann that happens a little bit earlier on, but aside from that, there's back-to-back chances right in the last minute. One from Shane Wright as he gets let loose on a breakaway, isn't able to beat Bobrovsky. I really felt like as he was skating and he was going to score with how things have been going for that line. And then speaking of that line, in the final seconds of overtime, it's Bjorkstrand who gets a breakaway of his own, once again shut down by Bobrovsky. So the game heads to the shootout, where the Kraken have surprisingly been good so far this season. They've only had 2, but they won both of them. This time, not so much. This looks a lot more like what you would expect from a team that has the high-end offensive talent the Panthers do, versus a Kraken team where, I mean, we love them, but this is not a team built for winning shootouts. We see that as Bobrovsky makes 2 stops. Decor doesn't stop either Panthers shot. The Panthers come away with the shootout victory. 2 points in the standings, 2 points on the scoreboard, and the Kraken get 1 in each place as well. Overall, then, with this game, I think it's one that you come away feeling generally on the positive side of the outlook for the Kraken coming out of it, or at least how the Kraken played in the game. Glass half full, not all the way full because they didn't get both points. They got half of the available points, but they got those points against a very good Panthers team playing well on that 6-game point streak. So, especially given that you did get doubled up on shots on goal, or at least almost doubled up on shots on goal, 33-17 as the Kraken equal a franchise low shots on goal in the game, but still they were able to play very, very well defensively. They were kind of forced to play well defensively with the Panthers all over things physically and forcing the Kraken, really making it very difficult for the Kraken to get through the neutral zone cleanly, except for the few times they were able to get those odd man rushes, which was basically what the Kraken had to rely on in this game to create offensive opportunities. If the Panthers had any time to get back and defend, if the Kraken got the puck and then tried to regroup to start a more controlled breakout, the Panthers would get back and make it very hard for them to get through the neutral zone, much less into the offensive end and set up. So the Kraken kind of had to rely on trying to catch the Panthers overextended the offensive end and get those rush chances the other way, which they were able to do on a number of occasions. And against a goaltender playing any worse than Bobrovsky did, they would have certainly capitalized on a few of them and probably come away with a win, even with the low shot total. Unfortunately, that just wasn't going to happen with Bobrovsky definitely on his game. The good news for the Kraken is Decord was very much on his game at the other end. And defensively, although they were playing against a Panthers team that, again, likes to play a very physical style and try to force things up near the net, the Kraken were not giving the Panthers the middle of the ice. The only goal that they score is out to the side. It just happens to be on the one play where the Kraken just gave up everything around them, and it was an easy goal from there. But yeah, other than that, and maybe one breakaway that I think the Panthers had at some point, and the 2-on-1 rush shorthanded, the Kraken just were not giving the Panthers the middle of the ice whatsoever in their own end. Anytime that there was a chance that came for the Panthers anywhere near the net, there were as many, if not twice as many Kraken sticks there, making it very difficult for them. There was a couple of wraparound chances. I think both happened in the first period that Alexiak kind of makes saves on as he just posts up by that far side. So Decord has one side blocked off, Alexiak has the other. They try to wrap it around. Alexiak either gets the stick or the puck on both occasions and keeps it out. I think Larson did a similar thing on a couple of occasions, clearing pucks away. The Kraken, lots of good blocks in this game as well. Wright took one at one point that he took a little bit to recover from. Obviously, we know if there's blocked shots, Tanev is going to be part of that. The only other real downside from this game is that I don't think this came off a blocked shot necessarily, but Gord, after maybe it had something to do with getting slashed on the hands, although Bilesma after the game suggested that wasn't what caused it, Gord would return to the bench to start the third period, play I think one shift, but then leave the bench and not return. So I don't know what happened there. It sounded like they didn't really have any kind of update. Hopefully it's just kind of a day-to-day thing. And I mean, ideally he would be back for the game against the Bruins coming up on Thursday. It could also be maybe a re-aggravation of whatever injury he had in on the island in New York on that first half of the back-to-back that kept him out of the second half against the Devils. All that said, though, again, I think you feel good coming out of this game with at least the 1 point in the standings. Yeah, as always, there was opportunities to get that second point, but 1 point against this team is pretty good. It does mean, though, that still at NHL 500, you need to start getting some games above 500, and some of those are coming up, starting with this game coming up on Thursday against the Bruins, who will be coming into it off of an 8-1 loss to the Winnipeg Jets. So it's definitely a Bruins team that has had a rough season so far. They're coming off maybe their worst game of that season. It's one that you need to take advantage of. Then after that on Saturday, they get the Lightning, which is a good team playing fairly well right now, so that's not going to be an easy win, but if they play the way they have been here lately over the road trip in this game against the Panthers, it is a winnable game, just not one you can really expect 2 points out of. However, coming up after that, the next two games against a once again struggling Senators team, and then certainly against a Blackhawks team that should be towards the top of the draft order for another year running. Those are games that you need to win if you want to get back in this race. So if the Kraken come out of that stretch of 4 beating the teams that they should, which I will include Boston in that, they go 3-1 over that stretch, well, then you're looking at 2 games over 500 and starting to work your way into that wild card conversation again. And again, we're still in December, but if you keep treading water here through December and you start getting into January and then certainly what is a light February with the middle of it taken out for the Four Nations tournament, you're starting to get pretty late in the season then, and you're going to need to go on some sort of crazy run to get yourself into that wild card race. So they do need to start chipping away at it now, and this next stretch of 4 games is one of those opportunities to do so. With that, though, let's close things out with the Kraken 3 stars, as always brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide Kraken 3 stars after every game, as well as some other perks as the season goes along, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by supporting over on Patreon as well through the link down below. With the first star, I gotta go with Joey Daccord. I think it's a fairly obvious first star considering how this game went. He stops 32 of 33 shots and just generally fantastic in net for the Kraken. Seeing the puck very well every time that he could see it. The only one that gets past him is certainly more on the defense than it is on him, and it's one of the few times that he couldn't see the puck, so that also helps explain it. And again, a play that should have never happened. Either way, Daccord, a fantastic night, and looking once again like the Daccord that we've seen for the vast majority of the season. Second star is a little bit more difficult. I think I'm going to go with Jared McCann. He gets the secondary assist with a point, but just generally had a really good game. One of the better games he's had over this drought that he's had scoring-wise. He's still been picking up assists here and there, but hasn't had a goal now in a few straight games. And you could kind of see at a couple points, especially in the third, at a couple of the odd man rushes that the Kraken had chances later on, that the confidence isn't quite there with him like it usually is. He wasn't nearly as willing to just fire off the shot when he had an open chance like he is most of the time when he's scoring goals. A couple of plays that I think you'd usually see him shoot, he opted to pass. At least once that got broken up. Another time it still led to a shot, but maybe not even one that was any more dangerous than the one he could have had, especially with the shot that he has. So hopefully sooner rather than later he can get a couple goals again and start feeling that confidence, which will just continue that avalanche of scoring that we know he's capable of having. He's fallen a little bit below the point per game pace he was on early on this season, but if things turn around for him here pretty soon, he can easily get back to that point per game pace. And then for the third star, this one is a little bit more difficult. I kind of feel like I should go with a defenseman just because of how, or the way that this game played out for the Kraken, how well they played defensively. Part of me wants to go with Shane Wright. I think he had a really good game. He did have one good block, which helps the defensive side of things, and had a couple of pretty good offensive opportunities that just wouldn't go. One late in the third that could have ended things right there, and then the one late in overtime. Alexiak did have the 2 pretty much saves on that far side of the net, while Daccord had the other side locked down in the first period, but then kind of had a bit of a tough game otherwise. So I think I'll go with Adam Larsson. He also didn't necessarily have the cleanest game ever and wasn't really that present at all with anything offensive, but was all around the net, helping clear the Panthers away from the net as he does, and certainly helping clear the puck away from the net. So I'll go with Larsson for the third star. I don't think that he necessarily did anything super flashy in this game that would make it obvious, but a pretty good body of work, and certainly was, as is usually the case with the Kraken, when they're having a lot of success keeping teams out of the middle of their end of the ice. Larsson tends to be a big part of that, and he was in this game. So yeah, we'll go with Larsson, the third star. Daccord, obvious first. I think McCann, I don't think obvious is probably the right word. If you have different stars, feel free to let me know in the comment section, but I think McCann a good second star there, and I'll go Larsson third. As always, though, again, love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section, how you felt about this game in general, how you feel about where the Kraken are at coming out of it. Playing well, for the most part. You'd like to see more offense, but at least when they didn't get offense, they were able to play one of their best defensive games, certainly in quite a while, if not this entire season. And also had some good penalty kill against a very good and dangerous power play. With that, though, until next time, against a Bruins team that the Kraken really probably should beat at this point if they want to try and get back into the playoff race. Stay safe out there. Be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken.